So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Please take your seats. We will now continue with two parts of the discussion. We will first continue to present some more results from this year's Berlin Pulse, and this is going to be the transatlantic edition of the Berlin Pulse, together with our very valued cooperation partner, the Pew Research Center, and James Bell, Vice President Global Strategy from the Pew Research Center. I have the particular pleasure to introduce some of the transatlantic results together with James Bell for you, and you will also have the chance to do one live voting. That's why you need these gadgets on your seat. And you will also have the chance later throughout the conference to do some more live voting. So please keep those on your seat, under your seat, wherever you like. So let me just quickly say that we have launched the Berlin Pulse 3D years ago with the idea to provide a guide to German public opinion. And we, from the beginning, have included, together with this Pew Research Center, selected questions that we have asked on both sides of the Atlantic. So questions that we've asked to Germans and questions that we have asked to you as Americans. And that, from time to time, produces some very interesting results. You can already see some of the results today on Spiegel Online, on FAZ Online, on all major newspapers. The New York Times has won some of the results, so you now have the special privilege to give your own opinion to these results. We will start with the first live voting question. Please take your devices, and I will hand over to James Bell introducing the question to you.
Thank you. So thank you for having me, Liana. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's quite a privilege to cooperate with the Körber-Stiftung in an endeavor that tries to understand how public opinion relates to policymaking and some of the major policy choices before countries like Germany and the United States. And under the topic of multilateralism, I think it's already been heard on this stage that where publics are and their views of the world is an important consideration as we discuss what is possible and what actions can be taken. So, as Liana said, we've asked questions of the public in both Germany and the United States, and we thought we'd give you a chance to answer one of the questions we posed in the survey, which was a question about rating the relationship between the United States and Germany today. So I think we're going to pose the question on the screen, and there you have it. How would you rate the current relationship between Germany and the United States? You have four options: very good, somewhat bad, and then very bad. So we're going to ask you to vote. Maybe Liana can specify how you vote on these amazingly sophisticated devices you held in your hand.
It's really very easy. Just press the button, no enter, just the number. You have 10 seconds from now.
This is exciting. I've never done this before. So.
A couple of seconds and we will get the results.
You can only vote once, by the way. There are rules. But.
No cheating, especially not if you're American.
Wow. So this is fascinating. This is a result for the audience, so you can see going from very good, somewhat bad, very bad, that the majority response in the room today among this illustrious group is 63% saying relationship is currently somewhat bad between the United States and Germany. Second most frequent response is somewhat good. And miraculously, this is very similar to some of the views we saw in the survey, so we want to share those now and give you a sense how it compares. So, to orient you, this graphic is showing you both views in the United States among the public and in Germany among the public. And you're seeing results for both the current year, which is in bold in the top line, and then for the previous year in the unbolded font. And you can see the general pattern here. In terms of where this audience aligns, it's interesting to be very similar to where the German public is, though they're not identical. And rating the relationship between the United States and Germany today as mostly somewhat bad. That is the most popular frequent response from Germany, compared with the United States, where the public, ordinary citizens, are saying, a majority are saying it's somewhat good. So the overall pattern, if we combine somewhat and very good and somewhat bad and very bad, is 3/4 of Americans say the relationship between the two countries today is good, and 2/3 of Germans say it's bad. So a couple things to highlight. Those are the top line numbers, so to speak. Those are the summary numbers, and you can see the contrast in views. But I'd also emphasize that you have 4 categories, and even as this audience did, the majority responses in both countries, even though they're in different directions, which is hugely important to focus on, is in the somewhat category. So we're not talking about poles apart necessarily, but we are talking about, in Germany in particular, a perception that the relationship today between the two countries is somewhat bad. And the interesting thing in the survey is the additional questions, especially in Germany, that were asked. In this moment of, we could say, Germans questioning that relationship, what other things are they considering that possibly change in terms of policy and their stance in the world? So, Liana?
Yeah. We also wanted to know this sort of alienation, if we can say it, does it extend to foreign and security policy? We asked already in 2018, we asked the Germans whether they want to have a more independent foreign policy from the United States. In 2018, 72% said yes, they want a more independent foreign policy. But we now wanted to know, do Germans know what this actually means to have a more independent foreign policy in terms of costs? So this year we've asked, should Germany strive for greater independence from the United States in defense matters, even if this meant more than doubling German defense spending? And you can see the result here that for the sake of becoming more independent or having a greater independence from the United States, 52% of Germans are in favor of increasing defense spending. Now let me throw in another number. When we also asked about sort of the general willingness to increase defense spending, the general willingness to increase defense spending was only 40%. When we link the question of defense spending to independence from the United States, it's 52%. So this is a relevant element. We also asked Germans, and we thought about this question before Macron gave his interview, we also asked Germans what they think about the future of nuclear protection, and especially our friends from France and Great Britain, listen up now, this is going to be interesting. We asked, should Germany continue to rely on the United States? 22%. Seek nuclear protection from France and the UK? 40%. Develop its own nuclear weapons? 7%. And forego nuclear protection at all? 31%. So there's a clear preference from the German side for a European nuclear umbrella and for European nuclear protection. The second preference is to forego nuclear protection at all, and this relates to the result that Thomas Paulsen has presented in the beginning, that Germans feel relatively safe and therefore seem to be willing to argue that 31% seem to be willing to argue that we don't need nuclear protection at all. This is certainly a warning signal for the security relationship between Germany and the United States.
So these findings, as Liana said, are linked, especially the one about defense spending. You ask it in 2 different ways, and when you insert the United States into the equation, it influences, it seems, the degree to which people want to have a more independent path. So we do want to think about the context in which you have these findings on potential policy initiatives or actions that could be taken by Germany in partnership with others. Who are those partners? How not only is the United States viewed, but how do Germans and Americans view other partners in the world? So we asked that question. It's one of the trend questions we've asked for several years now with the Körber-Stiftung. So we want to share those results now. So again, you're seeing results of public opinion in both Germany and the United States, with the German results to your left and the American results to the right. First thing you might notice is a bit of a contrast. So in terms of who is either the first or second most important partner, and we combine those for these results, you see that France stands out in the imagination, the worldviews of Germans today. And it stood out last year as well. So you have results here for both this year and last year, very consistent over the 2 years. For the Americans, similarly, a very consistent result between this year and last year. No one country stands out as prominently as France does in the imagination of Americans, but if there's any country that does, it's the UK. Germany, for Americans, is not a prominent partner as they imagine the world around them. You can see that only 9% the previous year, 13% this year among Americans point to Germany as either the most or second most important partner. For Germans, the United States figures much more prominently in their worldview. So again, interesting to see these contrasts. Interesting to see the relative ranking of how Germans place the United States as a partner and how Americans place Germany as a partner. Some of these findings, as you see them for these 2 years, suggest a steady state. And it is a good question to ask. Do public views of the world change rapidly or not? Liana pointed out, if you went back to 2016 and the survey that Körber-Stiftung did, actually the United States ranked above France. So it does change sometimes. And we've seen in our own polling at Pew Research Center over time, often worldviews will change with leadership change. And that's what we wanted to finish with. What about potential leadership change in the world? And how do people view that potential and what it might mean for how they see the world?
And we might not yet live in another world when it comes to the transatlantic relations, but transatlantic relations are clearly under strain. And we will leave you now with one more finding, as sort of an outlook to the future of US-Russian relations, a finding that we asked only in Germany, and that is about the impact of the elections in 2020 on German-US relations. We asked what would be the impact if President Trump were re-elected in 2020. And you see, not surprising, but still quite a dramatic result. Taken together, 87% see the impact as rather negative or very negative. So this is very much a result to keep in mind as we near the elections in 2020. With this, we would like to conclude the presentation of our transatlantic results. Thank you, Jim, and thank you to the Pew Research Center for the great cooperation. We are looking forward to continuing it in the following years.